Hey, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Jeff Ferris, President and CEO of Cloud Radio, here today with Mark Copeman with Wingman. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. Now you're all the way across the pond now, so it's getting to be, I guess, closer to pub time for you, right, than it is for me.
You know what? Us Brits aren't always in a pub, despite what you think, Jeff. Sometimes we,
Well,
we stay out of it and do some work.
well, I like to think you're leading the life that we're not. It's again, it's what we'll talk about today is aspirational. So the title of the webinar is a little strong. MSP websites are lousy. I think there's actually some meat to this, and we're going to have fun exploring that today. Uh, we've got a variety of different people here on the channel, so we're going to talk about a little bit about Cloud Radio, and then we're going to spend a lot of time on websites today. The For those of you who aren't familiar with Cloud Radio, we are basically the one and only client services automation platform. We work tightly with the PSAs that MSPs use to basically pull together a lot of different things to be a single pane of glass for end users for MSPs. So again, the ticketing, everything from what you're doing with the clients, where you're taking them, what you've done with the clients, all is there in a single pane of glass, using the stack that you're most familiar with and that use daily. Again, we're going to take all that data that you gather from all your tools, and we're going to make it actionable and transparent to clients. For those that, again, have Cloud Radio or those that haven't, this is the single pane of glass in a sense that you present to your client, where all of your interactions with the client, all of your client engagement can be in your white label branded portal. Cloud Radio is really good at bringing together your expertise from everyone, right? And including your clients. So again, we're going to bring together expertise from other partners, from our integration partners, from Cloud Radio, but also we make it collaborative with your clients so that your clients can be a part of that engagement process. And it's a way that you'll work with clients. A few years ago, we did a series of white papers that we called Land on Board, Manage and Grow, right? We didn't really have the best marketing team at the time, so we came up with LOMG, right? And for us, it's the life cycle that you experience with your clients as an MSP, starting from the time you land them all the way to the point where you're growing them and engaging them in more projects and more MRR. One of the things with Cloud Radio, when we started this endeavor a little over 5 years ago, the basic premise of the industry revolved around tools and the tools and the reports that those provided, and then what was called QBRs, right? These quarterly business reviews where you take the tool reports and you give to your clients and you walk them through the status information of everything you're doing with the idea that they don't leave you. And what we found with Cloud Radio is it's transformational. It lets you think and act differently with your clients because you're not basically in a reactive mode or in a defensive posture using reports to justify what you're doing. You're basically your ability to be transparent and collaborative opens up a new vista and a new way to think and engage with clients. And we came up with a series of white papers there, and the URL for anybody that's interested to download is cloudradio.com/LOMG. Again, clever marketing name. But the idea is to think and act differently with clients because you have a client engagement portal, right? Just like your PSA is helping you with operational maturity, Cloud Radio will help you with the engagement maturity. And because of that, it works to basically transform the way that you think about yourselves, the way your client thinks about you and what you do. So we want to focus a little bit on landing clients. And today we want to spend a little bit of time, or actually a lot of time, talking about websites, because the website is that entry point into the relationship with your clients. It's also your landing page for a lot of different things. And a website, when you look at a website, a typical website, it has a lot of different audiences in there. One will be your prospects and the lead capture. Certainly one of the top needs of the website is to attract the visitors, to attract the people that maybe have heard about you or are looking for you. and turn those people into leads that you can market to. You've also got existing clients that may use your website. Certainly Google's going to use your website to scrape your content and index your site to make it searchable. AdWords, if you're using AdWords, you'll need to put together special landing pages. But beyond that, you've also got your partners, interested parties, maybe they're investors, but you also have employees and stakeholders. And I've always found that the website is super important for prospects, but it's maybe sometimes even more important for your employees and stakeholders, so they understand what you do clearly and succinctly. If you think about all the stories you've heard out there about salespeople that couldn't sell, or salespeople that sold the wrong things for MSPs, a lot of times it's because the salespeople that are hired don't really understand the value proposition, don't really understand what the MSP is trying to accomplish with their clients. And so a website and having a good, clear messaging on the website helps employees and everybody else really get the message, because they're the ones that are going to reverberate that through multiple contacts. So as you look at your website, again, what you're trying to do is figure out who you're talking to on that website. And then you're also trying to figure out like who you are and who you're trying to present yourself to be. And there's a lot of different websites. I mean, we've now been talking to thousands of MSPs. We've probably looked at thousands of different MSP websites. And what's interesting in having to, I guess, understand whether they're an MSP, what they do as an MSP, what their focus is, and basically how we can help them. We've, on this left-hand side, are some personalities or personas that we've run across that are interesting but not engaging, right? And the right-hand side, if you'll notice, is a little more client target focused. And so if you think about the persona of the website, again, there's all different kinds of ways to do it. But at the end of the day, the website you create is there to help you land clients and help your team perform better in landing those clients, right? So as you think about your persona, as you think about who you want to be in the website, it's a good chance to come together and basically define who you're going to be and how you're going to interact with those clients down the road. One of the things that's most important with the website, because the website, very few MSPs actually close business off the website. I haven't, in all the MSP websites, Mark, tell me if I'm wrong, I've yet to see a buy now button for managed services.
Well, yeah, that's always going to be tricky. I mean, the way I like to look at it is the site is there to start a conversation. That's what it's there for. That should be the focus. Some people put pricing up, and there's certainly some schools of thought that says that's a good idea. Occasionally, and I actually recommend the idea, we do this on our site, the idea of buying an hour of time, potentially, some consulting expertise, a one-off fix. That's quite a nice thing to do, just as an option, tuck it away. But no one's ever going to buy managed services through an e-commerce button.
Right. And so, taking Mark's, again, the idea that it's about a conversation, what kind of conversations do you want to have with your clients, both today and down the road? Right. And so we've, if you've been to one of our earlier webinars, you've seen us talk about the buckets of budget. That's an interesting thing to say, buckets of budget. I'll say it 3 times. But those buckets are where you can find additional revenues, project dollars, and opportunity inside your clients. And one of those buckets, the first bucket is obviously managing technology. That's a conversation that you want to have with the clients, is how you can help them manage their technology. Another conversation you want to have, maybe past that, maybe at the same time, maybe at a later date, but you're going to want to have it, is managing people, or really managing their productivity. And the last thing is managing the outcomes. And what you'll find in each of these 3 areas, the amount of budget dollars that are available to you as an MSP to attain is much, much bigger in each level you go, right? If you think about the managing technology, that's more of a cost factor. Basically, companies want to minimize the cost of their technology. But when it comes to their people, they want to maximize the productivity of their people. So there's actually more dollars available for managing productivity then they're all for managing technology. And when you get to helping that company manage their growth and to enable them to achieve their business outcomes, all of a sudden those dollars, I mean, there's a lot of dollars available for that. And if you look at the largest companies in the space, what they are focused on typically is not necessarily managing the technology, because they've realigned themselves to help those businesses manage those outcomes. Any thoughts there, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really different, interesting way of trying to figure out how to win business and look at it. We've talked about this a lot in the past, Jeff, but not purely focusing on the IT. It's so much more than that. It's about helping and enabling business to do things as a result of selling them IT. So it's a positioning thing, I think, which you're sort of stumbling across there and trying to explain to people. I think it's quite a difficult concept to get your head around if you're used to walking in and selling IT services, but I think there's a lot to be said for it.
Yeah, and the idea is that, again, what you want to do is open those doors for later, right? Again, typically there's going to be something that brings you into the door on that first sale, typically around technology. Maybe it's a fear of ransomware. Maybe it's one of your ransomware ads. Maybe it's a talk at the local chamber. Maybe it's a friend and family referral. But there's initial conversation that starts, but it's not the end. Doesn't have to be the end of the conversations, right? And so what you want to do is set the stage for being that person that can do those other conversations. And one of the things, and especially as we get to the website, you have to think about whether or not you're transactional in nature, right? And so, I don't mean this in a negative for plumbers, but if I have a plumbing problem, I hire the plumber to fix that specific problem. And once that problem's gone, my need for that plumber is gone too, right? And so it's very transactional, service oriented, but transactional. If I think about it from a MSP perspective, if I solve their technology, again, transactional, because again, maybe they have a security need, I come in and I fix that technology. Do I also have the opportunity to go in there and become apparently that I can help them with those other things as well? Am I the MSP that fixes the printers, or am I the MSP that helps them grow their business? And that's what you're trying to set up in the initial website, in the initial conversations that you have with those clients. So I want to look at a few websites that from around the space. One of the things I've always learned, having been in business a couple of years, is there's always a lot of companies with a lot more marketing dollars than I have. And they have a lot more research. They have a lot more creative. They just have a lot more of everything than I have as a small startup business. And so what's really interesting to me, and always has been, is to what the people that are well-funded marketing, well-funded with ideas and creative, what they do after listening to their clients and what they're going to become. And so I've always, I guess, obtained, borrowed, stolen ideas from larger businesses that seem to understand the space better than myself, right? And so one of the things that was interesting is you look at this, so if you look at H&R Block, for example, I might have tweaked on the headline a little bit. So if you notice the sort of if we add numbers correctly, that's telling you how H&R Block does it, not necessarily what they're doing. And so this is sort of a joke, because again, this isn't the H&R Block website. The H&R Block website is really this, right? And so instead of talking about the how they do things, they talk about the results they're going to get for their clients, right? And if you think about the difference between the how and the what or the why, those are huge. And again, one of the common things I've seen in looking at different sites is sometimes websites tend to delve too much on the how and not the why. And so as you look at other websites, this is Silicon Valley Bank, which has made the news for a variety of different reasons. But one of the things that in looking at their website, it's really informative because you can see how they specialized in the venture capital space. If you were a venture capitalist and you came to the Silicon Valley Bank website, they spoke your language. If you were an investee or an investor, they were exactly the team that you thought you needed to help you navigate the startup world. And so whether, no matter what area you're in, no matter what stage of your startup journey, Silicon Valley Bank spoke your language, and their website did a great job of this. And again, part of Silicon Valley's explosion these last few days is because in some ways they were too successful and grew too fast over the last few years as the VC space expanded, and they just didn't have a good strategy for managing that growth. But grow they did. And again, a lot of what they did was their persona of being the VC banking experts. Hugely successful site, if you think about it. Maybe one of the most successful sites there have been in the last few years, maybe just not the best outcome story because they grew too fast. Interesting problem to have, but it blew them up. Synoptic is actually one of our longtime clients, larger, again, almost 1,000 employees. And if you look at their site, again, they're a managed service provider pretty much like everybody else. Now, the types of customers they deal with, the types of problems they deal with might be quite different. But at the end of the day, they're helping companies navigate technology. And if you look at what they're doing here, they're not leading with the how of what they're doing. They're leading with the benefit of what they're doing. And if you listen to their webinars, if you look at their literature, what they're doing is focusing on basically being the CIO, the VCIO of the companies they work with. And so they set that tone up front in conversation. And in the terminology of technology partner, you can see that almost any conversation they want to have with a client is bounded by that technology partner label. Because again, if you're somebody's partner, that means you're talking about a wide range of subjects. The other one I want to point to here is Merrill Lynch, part of Bank of America. So here is, again, Merrill Lynch is an institution that's been around for such a long time. B of A is such a big institution. But if you go to their site, what they've done is focused on transparency, right? Because if you look at B of A and Merrill Lynch, for example, investments has its own vocabulary, just like managed services do. It's incredibly complex to figure out an investment strategy for different companies, different individuals. Whether you're planning for retirement or early stage, there's so many facets to investing, but they don't lead with all of the complexity of investing. They lead with the transparency piece. They lead with their application and what it's like to be a partner or be a customer of Merrill Lynch, Bank of America. And I think this slide just shows you how across the board, rather than focus on the institution themselves, what they're doing is focusing on the way that clients engage with those institutions, the way they engage with those businesses, because that becomes the cornerstone of everybody's relationship. No longer do we just trust that the B of A and investment advisors are going to do what's right. We want to see if they're doing what's right, and we want to see what they're doing every step of the way. And again, what's interesting with Merrill Lynch, they're leading with their application now, not necessarily just with their expertise, right? So as you look at these different websites, you look at these websites funded by much larger marketing departments, what you see is some common themes that emerge as kind of the core foundations for what picture, what persona they want to portray to the people they think are the critical decision makers in the buying process. And so it's aspirational, it's partnership, stressing the benefits, their expertise, showing transparency, and again, backing it up with real testimonials and painting a picture of what life is going to be like together. And I think one of the things that is so challenging, I know even with our own client base, and I'm sure with Mark's too, what does it mean to be a client of Cloud Radio? What does it mean to be a client of Wingman? And just because we signed that contract, that's really the starting point, not the ending point. And so again, as you look at these common themes of the websites we just looked on, for the most part, they're looking at and focusing on the idea of what the future looks like, not what the past looks like, not what today looks like, but what the future looks like. And as you also notice, there's some things in there too in these different websites where there's mistakes that they've avoided, right? And it's very clear when you go to these sites, they know who they're trying to attract on that homepage. Again, the homepage isn't for AdWords, it isn't for SEO. It's for the decision maker that's going to be buying your service. And so each one of those websites is very clearly focused around the decision maker that's going to be engaged with that client. And those websites are focused on starting the conversation. So so again, if you look at the website mistakes or the website opportunities, again, what they all have done is basically get out of their own bubble. Because again, investment banking has banking has its own bubble of terminologies and expertises, as does personal investing, as does managed services. But none of those websites that we just looked at really talk about the bubble or the complexity of what they do. They talk about the benefits for the client. And so this brings us to what I think is one of the most interesting pieces of it. So this is something we've been trying to pull off for a while now, and finally found Mark, known Mark for a while, and then in Mark's new role with Wingman. What we did is we put together a concept, because again, there's a lot of different websites for MSPs out there. There's a lot of different templates. And so what we did is put together a straw man, now available at foxtech.cloudradio.com for our mythical Foxtech company. And basically want to show you what Mark and his team came up with. Let me, so
I think
now
it's a joint effort, actually, Jeff. And it needs a bit more work on it's a bit of a 4-3 going on. It's a bit constrained. When this is 16:9, it looks great. But anyway, go with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm remote today. So the joys of remote. So I think we're 4-3 because this is on my iPad. So it's very interesting.
Oh,
setup,
really?
right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
my iPad is my second screen today. So again, very interesting world we live in when I'm on spring break with my son and, presenting from a remote location with just the devices I could carry with me. So, interesting. So, the homepage here, Mark, I mean, do you want to talk about some of the thought process behind this?
Yeah, of course. And as Jeff said, this is obviously a fictitious business, which makes things both easier and harder at the same time to create, because you're not basing it on anything factual and there's kind of no constraints on you. But the first thing we're looking at before Jeff does any scrolling, for me, and just very briefly, my background, I've reviewed over 200 sites, MSP sites, over the last 12 months, through video, through online sessions, through face-to-face sessions, and seen a lot of stuff, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the most important part of your site, of this site, for me, is this thing we call the above the fold, which is what you're looking at now. It came from the old newspaper days, where the broadsheets used to be folded over. And so when it landed on your desk, the first thing you saw was that first part before the fold. Same here. It's there. It exists to entice you in, to attract your attention. I'm going to use an analogy if I can, Jeff. You'll be familiar with this. You go to a networking event, someone strides across the room and shakes your hand and starts boring the pants off you by talking about themselves, and then not letting you get a word in edgeways. And what do? You slowly but surely back away, and you make your excuses, visit the bar or the bathroom, and you hope to never speak to them again. Or maybe there's been a limp handshake as well, just to really mix things up a bit. That's what you have to be very, very careful. It's the same online, because the back button is just a few pixels away. It takes no effort to click the back button. So you have to entice people in. So there's a whole bunch of things here above the fold to hopefully draw people in. There is the idea, and Jeff and I have had a spirited debate about some of this stuff. I think it's fair to say. I'm really, really keen on particularly if you are focused locally, get this word Houston in here. I think is super important. I also love the idea of talking about some other facts and figures. We deal with 70 businesses right now, or we've been around for a certain number of years, all that sort of stuff, if you can fit that in. But making it super, super clear what it is that you do, what is your value proposition. The other thing I really like to do right up front is to, rather than you saying how great you are, put something in there which allows your customers, so a testimonial, a little quote there, which talks about somebody else saying how great you are. So you get that immediate trust and credibility. In the background, it's a little bit hidden with the screenshot there now, but if you do have that office presence, if you have that sort of real people working within your business, get a nice shot up there as well. We're actually covering over one of the guys on the front there to make it feel real, get that personality across. And then, one of the things Jeff was very keen to show here, obviously it's a Cloud Radio screenshot, but the idea of showing people how they can interact with your business, from a sort of an online perspective, I suppose, self-serve, and really create some sort of initial value with them in terms of the things that you will deliver, how you'll make their lives easier. So there's some initial thoughts. Just perhaps finally, Jeff, as well, I'll shut up for a second, but the header at the top as well, super simple. I've seen some horrific headers, some horrific rollover drop down type menus with 30 services on it, and it's just no. Less is more. We should probably have a services page on there. That's not been done yet, but you will see that top right hand corner, that call to action. And that call to action, it doesn't have to be this free IT action. It could be anything, but it draws people in. And as Jeff scrolls down the page, you'll see that call to action is repeated. So here's the other thing about the homepage, and I'll hand back over to Jeff. But the thing for me is, what you don't want is a whole bunch of links taking you off to other places on that homepage. So as he does scroll down, you'll see it's just the call to action and nothing else. You've got the ability to hit the buttons on the persistent header at the top, but to allow people to read your story and allow people to hit that call to action without distracting them in 15 different ways. Jeff.
Yeah, before we scroll off, I want to point out too, in the sense, what was best practices 5 years ago with MSP sites is not the same as it is today, right? Because again, 5 years ago, there wasn't a Cloud Radio. There wasn't a way to engage clients. Everything was basically selling your team and your team's expertise, because you had nothing to show except that your team was better and smarter and faster than somebody else's team. And that's always a tough proposition, especially in the age where MSPs are consolidating and MSPs are becoming larger. If it's about the number of people in an MSP, there's always going to be a larger MSP. As big as Synoptic is, there's bigger MSPs than Synoptic, right? So if it's simply a numbers game, or simply a trust or experience game, again, there's always somebody with more or better. And so what you have to do is basically be able to show what life is going to be like. And again, and what struck me in going through the website review of other major companies, especially like the Merrill Lynch site, is they lead right up front with how to be an informed investor, right? And just the same way that Merrill Lynch is leading with being an informed investor, basically you can do the same thing in the IT world by showing them that they can be an informed IT consumer, right? And so there's no longer do you have to wait for the MSP to carry printed reports and show things that maybe that aren't understandable or aren't relevant. From day one, you can show your clients what it's like to work with you, to live with you, and show them that they have control. Because typically 5 years ago, IT was about taking control away from the consumer, right? Again, we're going to lock down your computer. We're going to install these antivirus tools on there. We're going to install this malware tool on there. We're going to basically set up MFA. We're going to tell you all the things you can't and shouldn't be doing. And basically, we're just going to dare to make your life less capable, right? But more secure. And now if you look at it, now it's more collaborative. Security is a collaborative. What we have to do is show them that. So as we scroll down the page, now that we've got hopefully their fold, and God, I hope that we don't have to talk about what a newspaper is anymore, Mark. I know that someday we'll have to talk about above the fold of a newspaper, but right now I'm hoping still our audience is old enough to understand what a newspaper is, but I know my son wouldn't.
Remember the newspapers, yes.
Yeah, so as we scroll down the page, I mean, I think Mark is exactly right. If you've got the if you've got the proven case studies of successful clients, lead with that, right? Because again, that's a differentiator. If you don't have the book of clients, say you're just starting out or an emerging MSP, you don't have to have this. You know, you can, you know, you don't have to have a long list of things. What you're trying to do is instill the confidence. Hopefully you have one client, right? And that one client can be enough to launch everything else, right? Because all your people, the visitors are trying to do is just understand kind of a little bit about your history without you going back through some long, boring story of your history, right? You know, so if you go back and say, look, we've got 78 clients in the Houston area, history's over, right? You clearly know what you're talking about and you're going. If you don't, then you may have to talk about some other things. As we get down to this next phase, you know, one of the things that we've talked about is setting the stage for those conversations. And that's technology, productivity, and growth, right? Again, what we want to be is this website to basically trigger other questions so that they have to come to you for the conversation to get the answers, right? And so how does your company, how does your MSP help me with productivity? How does your MSP help me with growth, right? We assume the MSP, if you're smart and computer oriented, we assume you're going to help with technology. I never thought that you could help me with these other things. We want to drive these conversations. Mark, what have you seen as conversation starters for the websites you've done in the past? I mean, how have you approached, because again, I think we're with Cloud Radio, it's a little different, but what have you found as some good conversation starters on websites?
Yeah, so as in linking back to that call to action. So I mean, look, if we take ours to start with, Wingman, we introduced this in October, and it's also it's almost been too successful, which I know is a nice problem to have. But our starter for 10, our conversation starter, is a free website review. You know, I do a 6-7 minute video. We make it super clear on our call to action what you're going to get. Nice, simple contact form. And boy, do we get a ton of conversation starters that way. So that's one for us. Appreciate that's a marketing angle. But what I see and what we create for others, the action plan is a good thing. But I still see, certainly for smaller businesses, people want immediate access to that expertise, the people who understand. And so they're trying to gain some understanding of, can I trust you? Can I interact with you? Are you credible? And so one of the best ways of doing that, it sounds really simple, but it is that hour's consultation. It is ideally on site if it is a relatively local geography that you cover. You know, and again, part of this call to action is when you click that button, you make it super clear. You're still selling to people the concept. I'm going to come to your office. I'm going to do you a we're going to have a full conversation. I'm going to show you how we can help. I'm going to listen to your problems, may do you an audit of what's going on in the office, which is effectively a way for you to build up the beginnings of a proposal. Of course it is. But at the same time, for your prospect, they're getting to, you know, that know, like, and trust thing. Certainly the know and the like stages, I guess, because we talked about this before, whether you like it or not, people still buy from people. Sure, software kicks in, sure, automation can kick in, but you know, when you buy this type of service and have a new IT partner in town, you need to be able to trust them and know that you can work with them. So I still think that is one of the best ways of starting that conversation, by literally starting a conversation, ideally face to face, rather than some kind of, I see, 15-minute Zoom call. No, it's what can you really achieve in that period of time? Be a bit more generous. And just treat it as part of your sales process.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the website does not have a buy button on it, right? So the whole function of the website is to get that first face-to-face conversation, right? Yeah. But also set the stage for a smart conversation, right? So again, it's not just setting, again, if you want to have a conversation about, you know, Office 365, then the whole website becomes about Office 365. If that's the conversation that you want to have, if you want to go in there and but you want to go in there and become their partner, you want to have a long life with that client and become effectively their VCIO, you need to set the stage to have those conversations, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And a site that's all focused on 365 is fine if that's the conversation that you want to have and the only conversation that you want to have, right? And I just think that the website is that is that again, it's that you got 5 minutes as Mark said at the trade show or at the local PTA meeting to kind of explain to people what you do. And it's like we help people with technology, productivity, and growth, and we've helped, a ton of companies in Houston.
And
Okay,
one other point on that, Jeff, you picking up on like Microsoft 365, for example. I always say to people, they take great pride. Here's all the vendors that we work with, normally on the homepage. There'll be like a whole 20 load of logos. Your prospects don't care about these companies. They don't know who they are. They've heard of Microsoft, sure, but it's your job to manage all that. They don't need to know who you're working with. It's meaningless to them. They want to know you're working for logos of customers, because then that's the trust thing. But I strongly advise you to remove those vendor logos, obviously, apart from Cloud Radial, obviously, but those vendor logos.
No, we don't want our logo there either.
Oh, there we are. You see, it's the same. Maybe you tuck it away on the About Us, or maybe there is a place to put it, but not up front and center on the homepage.
No, and if you look at Merrill Lynch, Synoptic, H&R Block, none of those businesses are 100% internally developed software. They use a ton of third-party tools, just like MSPs do, to make their business work. But you never see those other logos on those other sites because, again, that's their bubble, not the client's bubble.
Exactly.
Right? Now, I'll scroll down a little bit more, because now we get into really, I think, what are potentially really strong value statements for the clients that you want to attract. And one of the things that I think MSPs are hesitant to talk about is ROI, right? Which is probably, for a business owner, is one of the strongest selling arguments you can have. Again, I've got pain. I need to be secure. I need, as a business owner, I don't want to hire somebody to do my internal IT, so you guys can take care of it. But that's a cost avoidance or a cost reduction issue. It's not necessarily an ROI, right? And so what they really want to see, what's really powerful words in that conversation, is delivering an ROI. So you're going to give me $1, small business person, and I'm going to give you back $1.25, $1.50, $5. Because I'm going to give you a return on that investment, right? Because we're going to manage your technology in a way that it's actually thriving for you. If we scroll on down, we'll talk about empowering their people, because we want to basically, again, we want to take their salary, which is most small businesses' largest single expense, and we want to supercharge that as much as possible. If you can basically get 10% more productivity out of employees, which you can through effective use of modern use of technology, that payback is huge. And it's a multiple of 10 or 100 over what you're charging for your IT services. So when you start tapping into these empowering people and you start delivering ROI, and you start talking about your team and your expertise facilitating growth, all of a sudden that $3,000 seems like the smartest investment they can make that day with that $3,000, right? And again, delivering that ROI, having that conversation face to face, and then also knowing what you're trying to drive to in that conversation, because again, you want them to like you, you want them to trust you, you want them to understand your expertise, but you really want to understand that investment they're getting ready to make in you has a payback, right? It isn't just an expense. It isn't just like the plumbing expense. It's not like their rent expense. It's something that they're going to give to you that's going to come back dressed up as more productive staff, better decision making, better growth, better opportunity to take advantage of their industry. Any thoughts on that, Mark? Or
well, no, there's nothing I need to expand on that really. But for me, we debated this. Okay, the video's not playing because we just moved the domain. Yeah. But let's just quickly talk about that part though. That is a video testimonial. I'm passionate about the power of social proof. In fact, before I joined here, I was on another webinar talking about video and just how important it is. And the more logos, the more little quotes, punchy, and ideally, a video with people saying fantastic things about you. Couple of minutes, doesn't need to be any longer than that. because no one will watch it all the way through. But what it means is then people go, okay, these guys do it for these guys, then I'm interested. I'm going to start to give them some trust. They've got that credibility. Why wouldn't I talk to them? So what you want to have happen at the bottom of the page is that people, of the homepage specifically, people think, okay, well, look, I like the story. They're doing it for credible businesses. Why wouldn't I start a conversation too? That's the thinking behind the page.
Yeah, there's an MSP website, and I was hesitant to use any existing websites from people other than Synoptic, but there was one website out there from one of our partners that was extremely powerful, and basically it was testimonial after testimonial of how that MSP was there for that client, right? We were struck with COVID. This MSP helped me navigate COVID and basically helped us basically save the day for us, right? We didn't have a plan for our future. This MSP came in and gave us a plan that has really paid off well, right? I mean, those are some great testimonials. Again, from a business owner to a business owner, that's what you're trying to is that social proof to basically say that these guys will be there for me, just like they've been there for the other people on down that testimonial page. And that's what's important is to strike out and set that tone. And again, it comes back to partnership, because again, what you're doing is helping your prospects understand what it's going to be like to have you as their MSP. Because maybe they've been in a bad relationship, maybe they've never been in a relationship, maybe they're in an okay relationship now, but it's not going anywhere. So again, what you're selling against is basically either a bad experience or no experience. And so showing them why your experience is going to be different, better, more positive, more partner-based, I think is really strong.
One of the questions, I'll get that video enabled now. You've moved the domain there, Jeff, so people can look at it. But one of the questions I do like to ask is, what's it like to work with XYZ? So those day-to-day interactions. Here we go. So here's another. So the little panel above is talking about people. It's showing real people inside the business, getting some personality across. Here's another testimonial. You can't have, I can't function without Foxtech. Quotes like that are incredibly powerful. And a little bit of a tip, it's people always say to me, Mark, how do you get quotes out of clients? They're inevitably they're difficult to get. One of the best ways of doing it is to write something yourself and send it to them and say, hey, would you put your name to this, and edit it if you want, and then you start to get the words that you want. Because one quote is not the same as another. Just saying something bland about you isn't as powerful as, obviously I made this up, but I can't function without you is really, really strong. And it makes quite a compelling argument if someone else is saying it.
And you'll be surprised at how, again, I was actually going to say the same thing, Mark, because again, when you're soliciting quotes from clients, sometimes they think about the first thing that comes to mind, or the first thing they want to do is flatter you. It's like, oh, Ted's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Right. And I like him and his team. Right. Well, that doesn't convey anything, but it's not a bad quote, but it's not necessarily that another prospective client is going to go like, oh my God, I have to have those people. And I just think it being able to write those quotes, wordsmith those quotes a little bit, it's really easy to do, and actually saves your client a lot of time, because they don't have to think about something. They just have to approve it. And it's actually a time saver to them if you give them a quote that makes sense for them to say.
Giving away all my secrets here, but the last question I tend to ask when I do video interviews on behalf of our clients is, would you recommend? It's a leading question, and I always caveat it with that. But why do you recommend? Give me some specifics, and you really get some interesting answers coming out of it. And so if you pose that question just in a written form to a client, they may come back with some answers, or ask it of yourself, write the answer, and then send it to them to approve. As Jeff said, it's so much easier and so much quicker to do. I've done that tons of times, and it's rare that people say no.
Right, and again, when you write it, the benefit you brought to the company, sometimes better than the client does. But as soon as you put it in front of the client, they go, that's exactly right. That's the value statement that they brought to me. But I guarantee you, your clients aren't thinking about you every single day. They're thinking about their own business every single day. So just putting a little reminder in there and getting that quote from them is a big time saver, just like Mark says.
Definitely. Jeff, there's a question in the chat you may want to take there. I can read it.
I'm not seeing the chat.
Okay, I'll read it for you. It's definitely one for you. This is from Felicia. Hopefully I've pronounced that correctly. We use Cloud Radio as our portal, not as our public-facing website. Are you suggesting that they should be one of the same now, or just we improve the primary public-facing website with enhancements from Cloud Radio-related content?
No, those are two different audiences. So if you haven't landed them, your primary website is for those prospects. Again, what you want is those leads coming from there. Ideally, you have a login button up there that links them off to the Cloud Radio login. Again, just like one of the audiences might be an existing client, and they won't remember that you have a portal.msp.com website, but they'll remember your MSP.com website. So include the login button on the website. And we probably should put this up here on this one.
Yeah.
Now I say it out loud. So you have the login button there, but then after that, it goes to your internal communications. Your internal website is Cloud Radio, 100%. So once they become a client, then everything else in your clients should over time relearn to interact with you through that website, not through your public website. Excuse me. So, and then
this handsome guy here.
I know. So just like Mark said, you want to show people who they're going to be dealing with. And in smaller enterprises. Oh, excuse me, 1 second.
Let me talk over you, Jeff. I'll talk over you. It's all good. This is our call to action, essentially. Bless you, whatever that was. This is our call to action. And I'm absolutely convinced if you put that personal touch, you show the real person. I mean, you may have 2 or 3 different people that you could talk to, or a picture of your team or whatever it is. But making it real people make a real difference. And actually, Jeff, if you go ahead and tap the call to action button there, this is important because so often I see buttons like that going straight to a Calendly page. And there's absolutely no explanation as to what you will get when you click that button. So you don't know if you're going to come and visit your office, if it's going to be a 15-minute thing, the sorts of questions which will be covered. So keep selling is my answer here. On our landing page here, Mark's ready. The formatting isn't particularly brilliant on the iPad here. We need to look at that. But if you scroll down a little bit, Jeff, deliberately, you can see that we've got a quote in there from somebody saying, I've had this process with Mark and it was really useful. And then underneath that, it goes on to talk about exactly what's what. In fact, there's something's not come through correctly, but there was a button on the right hand side, or you could put the Calendly embed on that right hand side. Here we go. For some reason, Calendly's there we go. So make it simple for people to book something with you, but importantly, make it clear what you're going to get. So you're always selling, including quotes on that particular page. Make that call to action page special. Don't just send people to your standard contact page with all the general blurb on it. This is a specific landing page to get people to take action and hopefully start a conversation with you.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Calendly or even Bookings or any app that goes.
Microsoft do the same as well now,
use TimeZest, right? So one of those to basically get the appointment with the client and just again make it super simple for them to pick a date and time when they can talk.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't even Calendly. All of these things can be on-site visits, right? They don't have to be booking a Zoom webinar or a Teams webinar. They can actually book an on-site visit just fine. So, so I think, I mean, if you look at the power of the website, again, you look at, and again, this goes back to Cloud Radio, because again, part of this conversation as we near the end here has been focused on reimagining what it's like to engage with your clients and reimagining what your clients can see in you, right? And one of the things, and Mark's done, as he said, 200 different site reviews. One of the things that in starting this project with Mark was trying to figure out, like, what does a site review look like if you have Cloud Radio? So if you don't have Cloud Radio, you're gonna look like most other MSPs, in the sense that you're going to lead with trust and maybe security or again, social proof, which is fine. But if you have Cloud Radial, you can actually lead your website more like Merrill Lynch, right? Where again, you have expertise, you have transparency, you have a way for clients to work with you in a very effective fashion. And then we'll go back to now, if you're interested, again, we had talked to a lot of different web design firms over the years. And one of the things that really impressed me with Mark is his passion, his expertise, his knowledge of the MSP space. If you've been on Tech Tribe or other places, Mark's been a fixture for a long time in a lot of different areas. So it's not like Mark is new to the MSP space or just another marketing agency. And so when we set out to do this project, I think we had a meeting of the mind, excuse me, about the need for better MSP websites. And again, the idea that Cloud Radial as an engagement platform offers up new ways to start those conversations. Because again, if you're going to be their partner, you need to be there. And it's hard to be their partner if you're going to go visit that client once a year in a QBR, or never visit that partner unless they call you, right? And so partnership with Cloud Radial, we think, is possible, doable, and scalable, where it's not really that easy without some sort of CSA tool, Cloud Radial in particular, but something that allows you to scale those client relationships and make them less chaotic and more proactive. So, Mark, do you have any closing words here?
No, I as you say, I've reviewed so many sites, and it makes me so sad that effectively people are leaving money on the table. I kind of liken it to, the analogy of the high street and people walking past a department store and not bothering to go in because the window just doesn't look interesting enough, or they've tried to cram every single item of their inventory in the window, which of course never happens in real life. But that's what I see sometimes on MSP sites. There's 30 services to choose from. It's like no one's ever going to look at those pages. So less is more is one of my key messages. Your site is there to do one thing only, to start a conversation. So if you do have that in the back of your mind, ask a client today, tomorrow, take a look at the site, at your site right now, and give you a really honest appraisal of it. Does it reflect who you are? The other thing I'd also recommend, ask a 10 or 12-year-old to do the same. That works a treat, because they will come at it all guns blazing. They won't hold back. And if they don't understand the messages, then I know it's deliberate, that age. If they don't understand it, then the chances are, your site visitors may not either, because they're not reading properly. They're skimming, they're scanning. They're just trying to get a feel for what you're all about and whether it's worth engaging with you. So sometimes less is more. Keep it simple. But just once in a while, just ask someone for an honest appraisal, because you could be leaving tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table with everybody walking by, and not stopping off and handing in their virtual business card, if you see what I mean. So it's really worth doing. It's really worth the investment. Nobody buys anything these days without checking you out. Why would you? You don't, watching this, I'm sure. Why would one of your visitors or prospects? So yeah, and any questions, any feedback, whatever, please do drop me a line. It'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah, and for everybody on the webinar, you will get a link to the video. We will have this on our YouTube channel, and certainly anybody that if you didn't show up but registered, you'll certainly get the link as well. But it's kind of hard to tell you that when you didn't show up. So again, appreciate everybody's time today. Mark, a pleasure talking with you. Thanks so much for putting this project together. This will be part of our standard marketing, because again, we believe that client engagement is transformational, and hopefully this webinar sets the stage for lots of conversations for you and others, and hopefully MSPs and their clients down the road. So thanks to everyone. and look forward to chatting. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.